Did you know that there are laws of attraction? And that the more we know about them, the more it can protect us from relationships that are unhealthy or defined as sinful? Keep listening to learn more.
Welcome to the Sifted Wheat Podcast with Leslie Lamb, a counselor by profession, a minister of truth, and a lover of people. This is a safe place where she sets a path for others to learn how to move through hard seasons with confidence and grace, encouraging your faith, empowering your choices, and challenging your perceptions through the Word, the wisdom from years of counseling others, and her own experience of being sifted. Here's Leslie.
First of all, let me state, I'm not talking about attraction in the space of manifesting things in your life. If you tuned in for that, you're going to be sorely disappointed, but you might learn something that's more important for your soul and ongoing mental and emotional health, so I invite you to stick around. Intimacy is a core value of life. We come out of the womb looking to be loved, seen, acknowledged, and wanted. The rest of our life is spent looking for connection and relationships that feed our souls. Unfortunately, the enemy of our soul knows this full well and seeks to tempt us to feed our souls with things that won't satisfy. In a hypersexualized culture, attraction is influenced everywhere. Everything is sexy or hot or a snack or whatever else trend language is used to emphasize an external attraction to tempt the appetite for more. Connecting sexual attraction to physical gratification is just more evidence of our porn-informed sexuality. In this conversation, I'm going to break down each of the laws of attraction and talk about how that awareness can support us in resisting temptation and creating better scenarios for intimacy. I mentioned them as the 3 laws of attraction because I think that's the way that I learned them, but they're really composed of 5 different principles of attraction. The first 3 things can actually go together under one law of proximity, and I'm pretty sure they did when I was in graduate school back in the day. But nevertheless, these days they've been further parsed out to bring a better explanation. So, unlike our culture pushes on us, rather than only physical appearance, the first principle of attraction is actually similarity. We like things that remind us of ourselves, which sounds a little egocentric, but it's true. It's why representation matters. We like to see people like us engaging in life in ways that encourage us to believe for the same things. It's easier to be with people who share our mindsets and our values. It's comfortable, and we like what's comfortable. But looks can be deceiving. That's why we're encouraged to spend time with people who might not seem like us from the offset and discover what we might actually have in common. This is one of the things that I loved about living in South Korea for most of my life. I learned that similarity goes beyond looks and into the heart and soul of the person. One of my best relationships before I got married, where I felt the most seen and respected, was in a relationship with a young man who was born to South Koreans, but lived in America in his earlier years. The opposite of me having been born in America and moved overseas. We had a lot in common, actually, and we loved Jesus equally. My point is, we gravitate towards those that are like us. But there's a wealth of goodness in finding similarities with those who don't initially seem very similar. The second principle to attraction is designated as proximity. Makes sense, right? You have things in common, you share the same values, and you're comfortable around one another, so you want to spend more time together. And the more time you spend with someone, virtually or in person, the more likely you are to be attracted to them. I'm sure you have heard or might even be a part of those stories where someone might not have been initially physically attracted to someone, but through time and attention and proximity, increased those feelings and led to beautiful relationships. Another thing proximity does is reveal more of the person, or should if they're authentic. My husband and I met in college. I thought he was cute, but I really wasn't sure about him because he would swing, to me it seemed, from goofy and intense, which was confusing. But the more that we crossed one another's paths and spent time together, the more I understood his personality and saw his interactions with people and had more of a context for why he was both goofy and intense and what encouraged either. In the shared space, it made more sense and it felt less threatening. Also, as someone who had been hurt, it gave me a space to earn trust, to see him engage with people around us in all different ways. If our time and space was limited, I would have been less likely to see him for who he was and probably would have stayed in a bubble of self-protection and never gotten married, if I'm honest. The next space of attraction is reciprocity, which is where we experience more attraction when the other person is also attracted to us. So why are romance novels and rom-coms based on a narrative of dismissal and dislike that turns into passion? Do you realize that that's actually the framework that can be a pathway to an abusive relationship? Why would I put myself in a situation to be treated poorly or disrespectfully out of the potential that he would learn to love me? And yet we do it. The bad boy or the mean girl that's really the hurting person who longs for connection but has learned to manipulate circumstances for his or her benefit is not the best love story. It teaches us to force ourselves on others, pushing past boundaries or accepting when others do that to us, instead of opening up space to get to know one another better and determine the level of trust they deserve and we should give. On the flip side of that, we have to be careful who we share our feelings with, especially if we aren't sure ourselves. This is where attraction can move into relationship too quickly. You know the scenario. You like that person, you're spending time with that person, you're not sure if they like you, and instead of staying in that earning trust phase, you decide to throw caution to the wind and tell them. Turns out they're also attracted to you with less relationship motive and more sexual urgency. And before you know it, you're making out on the couch and wondering what just happened and if you should be doing this at all. Oh, or was that just me? Okay, sure. But let me just say for the record, if that is you and you're in that situation or relationship, it's not too late to bail. It might be awkward, but if all you have is sexual connection and you're feeling more and more unseen and unsure, break it off. Trust me, you'll be so glad you did. The next law or principle of attraction is the one that we have been taught to focus on, physical attraction. Here's where it gets tricky. Because unlike we are generally conditioned to believe, for every person in the world, there's something that attracts them physically that might not be what the culture defines as attractive or beauty. This is important to recognize because often young people can think that if they don't have a certain look or fit in a certain size, they don't have a chance at love. This is so far from the truth. There's attraction for all types, including yours. Also, just because I find someone physically attractive doesn't mean I have to translate that to sex or create a meaning that is sexually charged. I don't know if you've noticed, but there are beautiful people all around us. We can appreciate that and without feeling some kind of way about it. I remember when I was counseling someone who stated that she struggled with same-sex attraction, and we were talking about women that she found beautiful, and I agreed. I even mentioned how body parts can be attractive and that it's okay to recognize beauty in one another as long as it doesn't become a situation of lust. The room got silent. No one had ever told her that we can find people and things attractive, and it doesn't mean that we have to be sexually charged by it. Let me take that a step further. We can even be sexually aroused by something, and it doesn't mean that we have to pursue it as our own or seek to experience it. The brain is a powerful mechanism, and attraction can stir up and release chemicals like dopamine, norepinephrine, and oxytocin, which create feelings of pleasure, arousal, and bonding. And let me tell you, in case you have not heard, that just because the brain sends a message, we don't have to obey it. I'm going to say that again because I feel like it's that important. Just because your brain sends you a message doesn't mean you have to obey it. In this case, just because I'm attracted to something or someone doesn't mean that I need to pursue them sexually. And we need to move beyond just knowing that for ourselves. And we need to teach that to one another and especially to this next generation. We will be attracted to people, but we don't have to pursue them. I used to say this, that I may be married, but I'm not dead. I would say that to confess that I found someone attractive. What I meant was that I was able to see that the other person was attractive, but my commitment to my marriage kept me from moving beyond that fact. But I actually recently stopped saying that because I didn't like the message it was sending my brain. It was like I was justifying being attracted to other people and excusing it and letting those looks linger rather than acknowledging it and resisting the temptation to keep looking. That's a personal conviction that I had because I wanted to be honest about my attraction while also honoring my commitment to my husband and not entertain fantasies. And that language shift made a huge change in my mindset and where I focused my attention. The language that we tell ourselves matters in how we engage our thoughts. The next space of attraction and connection is self-disclosure or emotional connection. This is where you reveal your inner thoughts, feelings, and experiences to forge a deeper connection based on authenticity and vulnerability. This is also where emotional affairs become a situation. I once heard someone say, there's no such thing as an emotional affair. It's just one phase of an extramarital affair. Of course, at the time, I didn't want to hear that. But having experienced it, I can without a doubt admit to its truth. There's another problem with self-disclosure and connection. Some people, myself included, especially in the past, can jump to this too soon. Why is that a problem? Well, you only know what people are telling you. And if you haven't encountered them in close proximity, then you might not know that they can manipulate their story to fit yours. In fact, this is a regular occurrence with predators and abusers. They seek to get to know you and create a story about themselves that, depending on their angle, either sets them up as a hero or a victim. Be careful. Very often we can fall in love with people's stories and confuse that for falling in love with them. If the story seems to swing to one side or the other, ask people around them for clarification. Extremes usually indicate false motives. Song of Songs or Song of Solomon, whichever translation you use, says these words, "Do not arouse or awaken love until it is time." Then it goes on to talk about the actions we should commit to if we do not want to awaken or arouse love. We are to become a wall for one another, to keep arousal at bay and not promote sexual engagement, which can look like encouraging the focus on character and inner qualities and development and away from those lustful desires. Or, if they're determined to fulfill those sexual desires and choose to be reckless, we are called to be their protection, keeping them safe from the pursuit of their lust and calling them back from spaces that would harm them. So where are you? Where do you need support or help? Do you need a wall to keep you focused on the truth of God and His words of worth and value? Or do you need accountability to help bar the door to temptation and the pursuit of unhealthy relationships? One thing's for sure. If you find yourself being attracted to someone and in ways that might not be healthy or in line with God's truth, you can decrease that level of attraction by eliminating one of these spaces. For instance, if you're more and more attracted to someone, maybe make a choice to spend less time with them. Text less, call less, communicate less. If you do life in similar circles, move out of those circles for a bit. Spend time with other people around you and focus more on those relationships. We often say we don't know how to resist people that we're attracted to. Well, that's usually our excuse for not resisting them. Do the hard thing by questioning the attraction instead of just entertaining it and getting more and more tangled into a situation or relationship that might not be who or what is best. Also, in that space of self-disclosure, test the stories you hear. Don't just fall for the emotional connection. Press into the story. And if they push back or shame you for wanting clarification, exit the building for real. That is a waving red flag on fire with sirens blaring. Look, I'm showing up in this space as both a wall and a means of protection. What culture won't tell you and what the enemy of your soul would like to remain hidden, I am here to expose. Nor am I afraid to reveal information that might help us navigate into better health and meaning in our relationships. Life is made up of connection, first to God and then to others. Next time, we're going to talk more about platonic intimacy, and I'm joining my dear friend, Dr. Brooke Keels, to parse that out. You won't want to miss that conversation, I promise you. Until then, thank you for listening in and for taking notes. You know who you are, and for opening another space to learn and to grow. I'm praying for you to make big, bold steps towards freedom, and I'm celebrating each milestone of faith and healing.